The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
A beautiful mother and her twin children, a boy and a girl, living in Arkansas until evil struck. Charity Beallis, 40 years old, was found shot to death alongside her 6-year-old twins in their Bonanza home on December 3rd, 2025, just one day after her final divorce hearing from Dr. Randall Beallis. Charity had filed for divorce in March after a domestic violence incident in which the physician choked her in front of their children. Family members said she feared for her life. The killings came in the middle of a contentious custody battle, and authorities have not named a suspect. Dr. Beallis, who pleaded guilty to a related battery charge and received a suspended sentence, denies involvement and is cooperating with investigators. New tonight, some of the shocking details from their divorce filings. But first, in September of 2025, conservative activist Charlie Kirk was fatally shot while speaking at a Utah Valley University event. A sudden assassination that stunned the political world and ignited fierce national debate. Authorities quickly identified 22-year-old Tyler Robinson of Utah as the suspect. They charged him with aggravated murder, firearms offenses, and obstruction, and announced they will seek the death penalty. Robinson was captured after a brief manhunt, reportedly persuaded by his own parents to surrender following FBI photo releases. Today, he made his first in-person court appearance in Provo, clad in street clothes and restraints. On the agenda today, the public's right to see this public trial in a public courtroom. It's the biggest murder case on Court TV's docket, and we have the latest from that Utah courtroom. I'm Vinnie Politan. Thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. The murder of Charlie Kirk was a public assassination. We saw it. Millions and millions saw the video. It was posted. Some people saw it live. Thousands of people were there at the moment that Charlie Kirk was struck by that bullet in his neck, taking his life. And since that time, and since the manhunt and the arrest of the suspect in this case, the murder of Charlie Kirk has taken on a life of its own in terms of conspiracies everywhere. And these conspiracies are coming from every direction and are coming from vastly different people pointing in different directions, but a lot of it pointing away from this defendant, pointing at other people, that there was something else that was going on here. It wasn't what investigators say they found. It wasn't the video evidence, nothing makes sense in the case. If you're anywhere near the algorithm for the murder of Charlie Kirk, you know what I'm talking about. It's everywhere. So for this case, for this trial, what needs to be done is to bring back some level of public trust, because whatever the outcome is, right, based on where we are now, whatever the outcome is, those theories, some of them will still exist. The problem is they could get worse than they are now after a public trial, especially if you don't have cameras in the courtroom. Charlie Kirk's widow wants cameras in the courtroom because she wants the world to know the truth. The murder was done publicly. The trial should be held publicly. Here's the problem. If you shut the cameras out of this one, because this is a big case, this is a big deal, this will undermine the trust. I mean, the trust in the government already is in a bad place, right? Could you imagine if they shut the cameras out in a state where cameras usually always go, and the public doesn't get to see the evidence or hear the evidence? You get everything sort of second and third hand by the handful of people that are inside the courtroom. And trust me, when you just have people in the courtroom coming out and telling you what happens, you have 5 people in the courtroom, you'll get 5 different versions of what was taking place during the course of that trial. Truth is what our system of justice is about. And the truth is important because you need to trust our system of justice, because this is where the decisions are made about who remains free and who gets locked up, who gets justice and who doesn't. And if the public doesn't trust their own system of justice, the whole thing crumbles. And this is the kind of case that can do a whole lot of damage to the trust of the public if they don't get to see and hear the evidence. Well, there was a hearing today in court, and there was a camera, which is good, microphones as well. And one of the issues that came up is cameras in the courtroom. It wasn't decided today, but what we learned today is that at least one side of this case doesn't want them. Take a listen.
We anticipate filing our own motion about the pretrial publicity order that has a little bit different take on it. That should be filed in plenty of time for us to argue that on the 16th as well. I think we have set aside the 30th, and that might be the one we want to save to argue our anticipated motion that's coming about keeping cameras out of the courtroom. And we will, I imagine the media will, depending on the court's ruling today, will want to weigh in on that one as well, and that would give them enough time as well. So that would be January 30th.
All right, and before I go to the other parties, the January 30th date, there was some complications, and so we have to find another date. We have February 3rd at 1 p.m. It is anticipated to be in person, and Ms. Nestor, is Mr. Robinson planning on appearing?
Yes, Your Honor.
February 3rd will be the date where they'll get to argue, and we'll see what prosecutors have to say here. My guess is if the victim wants cameras in the courtroom, prosecutors should be on board with that at a minimum. As part of the government, you should be on board for cameras in the courtroom because you want transparency and trust. And listening to this judge, he's very thoughtful, and Utah is one of the states where presumptively these cameras are in there. They can be kept out though, right? Judge runs their courtroom. We'll see what happens. Let's bring in our think tank, see what they have to say about all this. Former sex crimes prosecutor Stacey Honowitz with us tonight. Also with me, private investigator Lauren Vellucci, and finally, criminal defense attorney Sydney Rushing. Stacey, you know, hear it all the time from these defense. It's usually the defense that doesn't want the cameras. When the prosecution doesn't want the cameras, I'm very suspicious of them. Very suspicious of them. Because they work for us. They absolutely work for us, the people. We should get to see it. A case like this, how much damage do you think could be done to trust in the judicial branch of our government if a state like Utah, where cameras are always in this case, decides to keep them out?
Well, Vinnie, I agree with you in your opening statement, basically. I mean, you really run the risk of not having transparency. We are so politically charged in this case. You know we are. We see it every single day. We see the algorithms. We watch it on social media. We hear the different takes. We hear the conspiracy. So why not have full transparency where the world can see what is going on in this courtroom so that when they walk out, they can't say, oh, the government is hiding this or the defense is hiding this. And also you set a very bad precedent, because if you don't allow the cameras in this case, for cases now, high political cases, high profile cases, can now cite to this case and say, well, Judge, you let the cameras stay out for this, so we want it to happen in our thing. So I think you set off a chain of events that are really not well versed in the public in the court of public opinion if you do not allow full transparency in a case like this.
Yeah, go ahead, jump in there, Lauren.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. And not only that, you have to remember that there was children in this crowd that saw things that they should never see. The trauma that was exposed to thousands of people who didn't get the benefit to see an edited video of his death, who had to see the real thing. And then if a judge were to say, no, I'm sorry, all those people who were forced to see this horrific act can't even watch the justice system take place in a courtroom, what a disservice to really our whole country if that were to happen.
And I take the total opposite view of this. As you know, when we have a case, there are a lot of things that happen prior to trial. We have motion in lemines. We have evidentiary hearings. There are things that are part of evidence that will never see the day during a trial. If we have, the video cameras in here every time, that is going to make it very hard for a defendant who is charged with a crime to get a fair trial, because somebody's going to already see the evidence. And especially in a case like this, where it's highly publicized, I think that the pre-trial hearings that we see should be limited, and we should really just be waiting till the trial.
Sydney, Sydney, do we have voir dire in Utah? Do they have an opportunity?
You know what? I couldn't tell you that. In Michigan, we have voir dire, but I have no idea.
They do. Like, and Stacey, you remember there was a case down in Florida where every single piece of evidence that was admitted and not admitted against this mother who was accused of killing her child, everything was out there. The public, probably 98%, 99%, believe she was a murderer. She was voted the most hated woman in America. Yet, what was the result of that case, Stacey?
Well, she walked. I mean, and the public was outraged about what happened, but they got to see what happened, and the jurors were not their fit. Listen, I know what Sydney's trying to say with regards to the defense trying to keep these cameras out. But Vinnie, as somebody who's worked for Court TV all the years that you have, you know that there are, even if cameras are allowed in the courtroom, there are so many restrictions that the judge puts on those cameras, such as you cannot show faces of the jurors, you cannot show certain evidence that's been excluded. So while the defense is saying we don't think we're going to get a fair trial, while cameras are in the courtroom, it's fair for the public to see what's going on with those cameras having those specific restrictions about not showing certain things, which, Vinnie, I'm sure you're going to bring up is what happened in court today.
Yeah,
because what happened in court today.
Yeah, but there was another case. I'm trying to remember. It was in California. It was the 90s. My hair was a little longer. There was this guy, he was a football player, and there was a lot of pre-trial activity in that one. I think the prelim was broadcast. All the evidence was there. Everybody talked about it. Geraldo talked about it every night for 4 years on his show. I mean, there was no trial bigger. This one will be big. It won't be bigger. It may be. I don't know. But Sydney, my whole point is, at the end of the day, the jury, I trust them that whether they get it right or wrong, it's going to be based upon the evidence in the courtroom. It's not based upon what I say, what you say, the video that we show here tonight. The system is set up to weed those folks out.
So, it is and isn't at the same point, right? There are plenty of people. We had a case here in Michigan where we had a jury foreperson who kind of withheld a lot of her answers because she really wanted to be on the jury, and she got put on that jury. And you have to realize, back when Casey Anthony was a thing and all the other cases, social media isn't what it is now. TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook, they are so widely spread. You're reaching a lot more people, not just people that are watching the nightly news, that are watching Court TV, that are reading the newspaper. We have so much media and news and information that are at our fingertips. It's going to make it harder during trial. I 1000% agree that the camera should be present during trial. I'm just saying the pre-trial stuff that, you know, some of those things I don't think necessarily need to go because, again, with Robinson, he gets to appear in clothing because he gets the presumption of innocence. And that's only due to all of the cameras that are going to be in there and his picture being blasted everywhere. That's the only reason he gets to wear the...
There's a presumption of innocence, and then there's secret court. Like, we don't have secret courts here. The courts are supposed to be open. They're ours. They don't belong to the defendants. They don't belong to the defendants. They belong to the people. What's the difference between me getting up and walking into a courtroom pre-trial or a camera being in there? What's the difference?
Because you are one individual person. You're not the entire jury pool that's going to be seeing these things. You're one individual person. That's why courtrooms are open. I'm in court every single day, and thank God that my courtroom is not broadcasted to live TV all day, every day, because my clients would have an issue with with potentially having a fair trial. Now, it'd be much smaller of an issue here, but in this case specifically, with how widespread it is, how publicized it is, and how everybody's got their interest in it, right? That's why I'm just saying, like, you know, we do have to kind of take those things into consideration.
But that
you have the interest of the reporters that are
even doing that.
You've got reporters that are sitting.
Go ahead, Lauren. Go ahead.
No, it cuts down on the whole system, though, if we're only picking and choosing parts that we want to let the public see. This whole event was streamed live. You had people on Snapchat streaming it, and you had so many things after the fact where we saw so much evidence. You could see the gun in his shirt and his pants. You could see all kinds of text messages from him and his lover. We have seen this. Now to just tell the country who has seen all of this, sorry, we're going to start limiting it now before trial. It's a bad look, and it casts doubt on our whole system.
Go ahead, Stacey.
No, I was going to say, listen, you know, the feds don't have cameras in their courtroom. We saw it with Diddy, but we still saw that it was across every single social media channel every single day when they came out of court. We discussed it on Court TV. Everybody wrote something on TikTok. Everybody had something different to say. All these reporters came out and started talking about things. You know, like I said, I understand where where Sydney's coming from, where the defense might say, listen, this is not going to be fair to my client. But to your other guest's point just now, we have seen everything. There's nothing that's a secret. And the restrictions are built in with regard to certain things, such as today when he was in street clothes, but he was in shackles. And guess what? There was a camera angle where they could see. Now, there's not even a jury in there now. It's just the public. But they could see the shackles, and the judge made the camera person move because the defense was able to see that that was a problem. And that's what you're going to see. Now, I'm not saying that it's not a huge, I don't even know what the word, I mean, you know, for safety measures, it's a huge undertaking. We know when the cameras come in the courtroom on a case like this, not so much on a case that's not publicized as much, but in a case like this, there's a huge undertaking with security, with restrictions, all those things. But you cannot tell the public, I think at this point, that has seen everything from every angle, that guess what? Now we're not going to show you anything, and you're going to have to rely on the word of some of the reporters that walk out.
And the other part, you mentioned social media, Sydney. What's happening on social media is, I mean, you take a look. I don't know if you've been taking a look, but like, conspiracies all over the place, and I'm fine with it. Like, go ahead. It's America. It's freedom of speech. You can express your opinions about what you think is really going on in all this, and that is everywhere. It's like I don't understand. Like, where do you stop with the pre-trial prejudice? Like, are you going to attempt to reach out and stop people from talking about conspiracy theories? No, you can't. It's still the United States, and that could influence anything. Can influence a jury. That's why we have voir dire. That's why you get to meet the jurors. That's why you get to speak to them, and you either trust them or you don't. And as a lawyer or a jury consultant, it's up to you to figure out if they're lying to you. Right? Like, that's your job. That's why you're making the big bucks, and figuring out who's going to be on this jury, who's not going to be on this jury. So that's my point. It's like the cat is out of the box, or however that saying goes, and there's nothing you can do. The cameras, the one thing the cameras capture is what's actually happening, not up for interpretation, not up for conspiracy. Like, you want to know what the testimony was? You can see it, you can hear it. Do you want me to come out of the courtroom and tell you what to think. And then you either believe me or you believe the other guy who's saying something completely different, whereas the camera shows you what was actually said, what was actually shown, what it actually looked like. That's my point, is the transparency always gets you closer to the truth. And the truth is what a trial's about, isn't it?
It is 100%. And like I said, I think during trial, all cameras should be there. Media should be there. Everyone should be there so we can all see this trial as it goes, as it moves forward and see all the evidence that way. But it is so important and it is so paramount to protect every single defendant's constitutional rights. And that is the right to have a fair and impartial jury. And if that requires that we don't video record, stream nationwide, these pretrial motions, which can also include, like I said, evidentiary hearings, things that a jury is never going to see. So if it limits that, that's one thing. Again, courtrooms are open. You can always go in there. The other thing that we're seeing on social media right now, too, is AI stuff created of Robinson having an outburst in court. Yeah. But the only reason they have the image to be able to try and manipulate it is because the camera's in the courtroom. So these are all things that you have to take into consideration. Again, I think that the camera should be there for the trial. We as the public should be able to see the entire trial because we're there. We've got the evidence. They know what the rules are. But prior to, there's a lot of stuff that happens. And, you know that. A lot of stuff happens.
Yeah, I know. All right, great news. Think Tank staying with us. When we come back, we're going to talk about the case against the accused Charlie Kirk assassin. Plus, coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, he allegedly slipped into Manhattan, took aim and killed a high-profile CEO, then disappeared into America's urban maze. Now, camera footage, a mysterious backpack full of weapons, and a brutal pre-trial fight over evidence are setting up one of the most watched cases of the decade. But with supporters chanting his name outside court, the question isn't just guilt or innocence. It's what kind of justice will America demand? Tonight, we investigate.
The Court TV podcast will return.
The suspect ran behind that upper building. He's going to come out on the right, moves to this far right corner. As he does, he's going to climb off the edge and then drop down to the ground. You're going to see a very distinctive T-shirt with an American flag and appears to have an eagle on it. There's also a baseball cap with a triangle on it and a pair of sunglasses. All distinctive, all things that we would ask the public to look for.
To whoever did this, we will find you.
There is some compelling evidence in the case against Charlie Kirk's accused assassin, including this video evidence, and then all of the stuff that they finally recovered, including some of the electronic communications back and forth. So we're going to take a listen to the Utah County Attorney Jeffrey Gray describe some of that. And as you listen to it and you think about it, if in fact you believe that this kid was set up and didn't actually commit this crime, this is a very involved framing situation in terms of all of the evidence and the pieces that they put together here. Take a listen to some of the evidence that prosecutors say they have.
Approximately 15 minutes into the event, Mr. Kirk was answering a question about mass shootings by transgender individuals when a gunshot rang out. The bullet struck Mr. Kirk in the neck. He slumped to the ground almost immediately. The bullet's trajectory passed closely to several other individuals beside Mr. Kirk, including the questioner who was standing directly in front of Mr. Kirk. Children were visible near Mr. Kirk's stage when he was shot. Mr. Kirk was rushed to a nearby hospital where he was declared deceased. Police interviewed Robinson's roommate, a biological male who was involved in a romantic relationship with Robinson. The roommate told police that the roommate received messages from Robinson about the shooting, and he did provide those messages to police. On September 10th, 2025, the roommate received a text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you're doing, look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Police found a photograph of this note. The following text exchange, then took place. After reading the note, the roommate responded, "What? You're joking, right? Robinson, I am still okay, my love, but am stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." Roommate, you weren't the one who did it, right? Robinson, I am. I'm sorry. Roommate, I thought they caught the person. Robinson, no, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering. Roommate, why? Robinson, why did I do it? Roommate, yeah. Robinson, I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it again. Hopefully they have moved on. I haven't seen anything about them finding it. Roommate, how long have you been planning this? Robinson, a bit over a week, I believe. I can get close to it, but there is a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. Robinson again, I'm wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got to my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. IDEK if it's had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. Didn't have the ability or time to bring it with. I might have to abandon it and hope they don't find prints. How the F will I explain losing it to my old man? Only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. Remember how I was engraving bullets? The effing messages are mostly a big meme. If I see notice bulge UWU on Fox News, I might have a stroke all right. I'm gonna have to leave it. That really effing sucks. Judging from today, I'd say Grandpa's gun does just fine, IDK. I think that was a $2K scope. Wink, wink. Robinson again, delete this exchange. Again, Robinson, my dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle, and it is very unique. He's calling me, RN, not answering. Robinson, since Trump got into office, my dad has been pretty diehard MAGA. Robinson, I'm going to turn myself in willingly. One of my neighbors here is a deputy for the sheriff. Again, you are all I worry about, love. That came from Robinson. Roommate, I'm much more worried about you. Robinson, don't talk to the media, please. Don't take any interviews or make any comments. If any police ask you questions, ask for a lawyer and stay silent.
And that sounds like a confession to me, Lauren Bellucci. Your thoughts about the digital communications back and forth between the accused killer and his lover. I mean, I don't know any other way to explain it. Like, everything he's saying, if they can corroborate what he's saying in that digital trail, that's the case.
Yeah, as long as the metadata adds up to this, it is a pretty simple case. That combined with all the video footage that we saw, you can clearly see he he matches the description. They have him on home video surveillance down a street several times and matched up with the times. I mean, this potentially is a pretty easy and solid case.
Sydney, so is that some of the information that you don't think anyone should have heard?
No, that's not what I'm doing. No, so with these, so this is obviously something that's going to come in during the trial, right? As long as they can lay the foundation for it and they can do all the things that are necessary. But no, and like you said, it sounds like a confession. It sounds like he's saying exactly what he did, why he did it. It's actually kind of funny to hear the prosecutor read the text messages because, of course, he said RN instead of right now. It's kind of funny. But, so this is something that it's evidence. We know it's part of evidence. And this was brought out. I think they were reading those text messages before we even had his first court appearance. So that is something where it's like they're bringing stuff out a little bit early maybe. But no, I mean, we know this is coming in during trial. There's nothing that's going to keep this out.
Yeah. Stacey, I look at the case and the evidence in this one. It's not quite as strong as the Luigi Mangione case. That is to me, everything that you would want. Here you have almost everything that you want. What is the trial going to be about?
Well, the defense isn't going to walk up there and say, listen, it's all in the text messages. They're going to fight everything. They're going to fight the arrest. I mean, they're fighting they're going to make every motion that it shouldn't come in, that it was illegally obtained, that it doesn't match up. I mean, they're going to make every motion they possibly can because they're the defense, and they have to vigorously represent their client, unless, of course, they walked into the prosecutor's office and said,
but let's say we get to trial.
Don't give us death. We'll give you everything.
Let's say all the evidence comes in, right, and we're at trial. What is the trial about?
Honestly, as the prosecutor, I would get up during my opening and read that whole text exchange, and I'd get up during my closing and read that entire text exchange. And I don't know what the defense is going to try to do. I'd put on all my witnesses, all my police officers, all my investigators, but that's the evidence, Vinnie, and sometimes you have that. Sometimes the defense just doesn't have a case. And in this juncture, I don't think they do. I think it is simple for the prosecutor to say, it's right here. It's laid out. He confessed. He told us about the rifle. He told us that it belonged to my grandfather, that my father's calling me, that I'm going to turn myself in. What more could a jury possibly want? Or what else? I think you should ask Sydney what basically the defense would be questioning in this case.
Yeah, and let me ask you this, though, Sydney, as part of that answer, do you suspect that any of these conspiracy theories could trickle into the courtroom?
So, yes. So when it comes to these conspiracy theories, I wouldn't put it beside the defense to be, following up every lead or everything that, could potentially make sense, because that's their job. Their job is to try and get to the bottom of it, get to the truth of it. And if these things, some of these conspiracy theories are, they're kind of eye-opening, truthfully. So, they should follow up on those. But realistically, they got to make sure that they don't get too far out of the weeds, right? They got to kind of make sure they're keeping it tailored in. And in response to about the text messages, how would the defense handle that? It's very hard. But I guess one of the things that you would say is okay, well, who saw him text it, right? Who knows for sure that he was one who texted on the phone to, the girlfriend, or that she didn't have access to an iPad, sent him to herself, anything like that. That's what a defense attorney would probably have to argue in that, is just to say, well, here's something, right? Here's something, but we know that usually doesn't go very far.
Well, that's probably how they argue about foundation. That's what it would be.
Yeah,
it'd be it'd be like a foundation type of thing. It was Sue's boyfriend, and then the prosecution would argue the foundation's been properly laid. We know that these text messages are coming from him to the boyfriend, and the boyfriend would testify. Yeah, they'd cross-examine this boyfriend. Let's see your number. When did you text him? What did you have to say? Were you shocked? I mean, it's not just the actual physical text that's coming in. You've got a witness that's going to take the stand and say, here's what I received, when, how, and why. So, right. All I'm saying is I think the defense has an upward ride in this case, and I think it's very interesting that the sheriff, I've never seen in a case before where the sheriff has really basically come out and argued the entire case to the press and to the public. And that's
I've seen that down in Polk County, Florida. I've seen that a couple times. Let me ask you something, Lauren. Is there something that you believe needs to be more fully investigated in the case right now?
Yeah, I absolutely think that the girlfriend in this case needs to be investigated. The fact that she allegedly saw him, carving these bullets. Was there questions asked? He alludes to this in those text messages that were raised. So that was always a question that I had lingering on. Was there more involvement? Was there more knowledge on her part?
All right. Tank staying with us. When we come back, oh, boy, this case out of Arkansas, these two twins gone, taken, their mother shot and killed. One day after the big divorce hearing, no arrests yet. We'll talk about the latest from the divorce filings when we come back.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
This is so incredibly sad and tragic. 6-year-old twins and their mom, Charity Beallis, shot and killed in their own home in Arkansas, Bonanza, Arkansas. Beautiful home, beautiful family, but a very volatile situation inside. She was in the midst of a divorce from her husband, Randall Scott Beallis. I want to take a look at this, give you a little bit of history of the couple, because the timing and the backstory is really important to the story. They were married first in 2012 and shortly thereafter divorced, but reconciled, began dating in 2013, remarried November of 2015. The twins are born in 2019. Everything's going great, but then separated on February 16th, 2025 after a domestic violence incident. Take a look at these allegations from a motion where Charity was attempting to get her husband drug tested. The party's minor children disclosed an act of child abuse perpetrated by their father on them in July of 24. Their disclosure included detailed statements regarding the father suffocating the children and threatening to harm them if they told anyone. August of 2013, the father beat the mother and almost strangled her to death. He then portrayed her as the aggressor and had her arrested. The charges were dropped. Mother believes father to have been abusing alcohol and illegal narcotics at the time. Between the years 2015 and the mother's pregnancy in 2019, the father physically abused the mother numerous times. One such time included the father holding a shotgun to her face. During each attack, the father was under the influence of alcohol or illegal narcotics, including heroin. Once the twins were born, the father's abuse converted to mainly psychological, emotional, and financial. And the father's extreme physical abuse returned in February, and the mother believes the father to have been under the influence of heroin on the date in question. He was arrested for that and pleaded guilty to that. Let's bring back in our think tank, Stacey Honowitz, Lauren Vellucci, Sydney Rushing. The case right now for the murder, no one's been arrested, and Lauren, the husband, says that he's cooperating and says, take a look at everything. I'm not hiding anything here. What are your thoughts about this investigation? Because obviously he's the focus of it. But at this point, it doesn't seem like they have any evidence that he committed this crime.
Yeah, to the public, but I think that they have a whole lot more. Not only that, but they have come out and said, we don't believe there's a danger to the public here. You have a lady and her 2 beautiful children who were found murdered in their home. They know who did this. I think they have a whole lot to go on. Not only that, this victim knew and foresaw this happening, and she tried to get help. She tried to speak up. This man has a record of abusing her and even the children now that we're finding out. This just shows how serious domestic violence is. It can and it does lead to murder. And this lady was doing everything in her power to try to get help, and it unfortunately did not come soon enough.
Sydney, what are your thoughts at this point of the case?
So at this point, I think that the husband has taken maybe a book out of Brian Walsh's, defense strategy, where you say, oh my gosh, ask me all the questions you want. Here's all this information. But realistically, they know what happened. But I think that it's a little bit crazy that they don't have somebody arrested for this yet, because of course this is the day after the divorce was, granted essentially. And he, the husband, the ex-husband, he would be a point of, contention. But the other thing too is she had another son, and you kind of wonder if there was anything, like any involvement by him. They also lived in a pretty affluent area, so I'm surprised to hear that they are, I guess they haven't released it yet maybe, but where's the surveillance cameras, anything like that? And there was 2 workers that were in the home that let the officers into the home where they found the mom and her 2 kids. There's a lot here, and I think it's a little bit crazy. I'm glad they're not rushing to an arrest, but I think there should be one probably soon.
Yeah, and Stacey, at this point, I mean, this is one of those stories where we see a history of documented domestic violence. It's a difficult cycle sometimes to escape.
Yeah, working with domestic violence cases, you see it all the time, unfortunately. And I don't think that it's taken seriously. I really don't. Lots of times you have to realize, too, you have domestic cases and the victims lots of times do end up dropping charges. They're fearful of something happening. And so they end up and you can't prosecute the case without the victim. But I think courts really need to start focusing on drug tests. When an allegation is made, lots of times, I think a judge will take a step back. Well, it's just an allegation. Well, I don't know. Maybe if you're going through a contentious divorce, maybe if allegations of abuse, of drug use, alcohol use, maybe the courts need to really focus in and say, you need to be tested. You need to go to therapy. I mean, we are seeing so much more of this. It's unbelievable in the court system. We are seeing allegations of previous domestic violence, and then unfortunately, we are seeing the death of one of the spouses. So I do think courts need to take a look, maybe revamp some things, maybe force couples that are having child custody issues, having to go to therapy while this is going on. Something needs to change.
Fantastic job tonight. Stacey Hanois, Lauren Vellucci, Sydney Rushing, thank you so much. When we come back, I will reveal something else you need to know tonight, plus coming up next hour. Tonight on Vinnie Politan Investigates, one man on surveillance video, one CEO dead on a New York sidewalk, and a suspect who has flipped a courtroom drama into a rallying cry for critics of the system. As both state and federal prosecutors advance, will the evidence hold up, or will this trial tear the nation's fault lines even wider? Tonight, we investigate.
This is the Court TV Podcast.
Time to reveal something else you need to know tonight. Let's take a look at the big board. What do we have? Happily married. Who is that? That's Kyle Rittenhouse, who was acquitted in his trial in 2021 for a shooting in Kenosha, Wisconsin, that left 2 dead and 1 wounded. Not guilty was the verdict. He claimed self-defense, and the jury believed him. He's now gotten married to Bella. Take a look at the wedding photos. He has also announced on social media that he's back. I'm back on social media. I'm back in the, that's a wedding photo. I'm back in the fight, and I'm here to stay. For a quick update, 6 months ago, I made the best decision of my life. Married my best friend. Couldn't be happier. I love you, beautiful. More big announcements coming soon from Kyle Rittenhouse, now happily married. Take a look at your screen, folks. We have a missing child who needs your help tonight. This is Justice Rich, 12 years old, only 12 years old, missing from Durham, North Carolina. If you see Justice, pick up the phone, make a call, make a difference. 911, 1-800-THE-LOST, or you can call the Durham Police Department in North Carolina. That number is on your screen right now. Let's see if we can get justice to a safe place tonight. Don't go anywhere. We have another hour of live true crime. Vinnie Politan Investigates is next. In the meantime, please don't forget to hug the kids. There you have it. If you want to see more in-depth reporting on the latest true crime stories, you can see me every weeknight, 8 p.m. Eastern on Closing Arguments. Thank you so much for downloading. And as always, please don't forget to hug the kids.
This podcast is a production of Court TV. Go to CourtTV.com for more content, trials on demand, and to find out how to watch Court TV in your area.